We all have different things that we would like to, we prefer to talk about different things different messages, I guess, that we feel is important, that we feel is most important to be able to relay to you. And, unfortunately, if you do that, if you talk about something all the time nonstop, you wind up, the boy who cried wolf kind of thing. Even if you're not quite in that situation, just simply talking about it all the time. There's channels I've had to unsubscribe from because I'm tired of the end of the world every day. And, a lot of some of the weather related channels and stuff like that, my intent's not to call out channels, but every day, food shortages. They've been talking food shortages for the last God knows how many years. Okay, now it looks like we're actually facing them, but look at all the people that have been turned away by now because of all the false alarms. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, and I don't want to do that with this subject. But if there was two things, yeah, I'm asking for two. If there was two things that I could have everybody that's ever listened to my voice walk away from and know, it's about the pole shift that's coming, and it's about wood gasification. Because those two things are going to be imperative to survival. Absolute imperatives to survival on any scale. And we're going to get into that. So, again, this would be the subject if I was allowed to choose one, or two in my case. That's what it would be. Why? Because it's the most, I hate to use the word dangerous. It is definitely the one that's going to hit us the hardest, hands down. You look at all this stuff that's going on right now in the world, with COVID, with the vaccines, and then with the world's economy, and the geopolitical tensions and all of that. You look at all of that, and it's pretty daunting. And yeah, things like World War and things like forced vaccination, things like that are definitely no small thing. However, pole shift is a whole different story. And I don't think enough people look at it. I think the message gets too blurred by, again, there are channels out there that every day is the end of the world. And it's sad because there's a lot of people, howdy stealth survivalists, there's a lot of people that feed into it. And unfortunately, like I say, it causes an effect to where people no longer listen to the message, or people start getting the messages confused. And there are multiple weather events, and I'm calling them weather events. That's not actually correct, and I want to make that very clear. That's not correct. But I'm calling them weather events. And there are several different ones and that are going to be happening at the same time. They're actually cycles, would be more of a correct term. You're going to, for the most part, recognize it by weather events, though. That's how you're going to be most familiar with it, especially as it progresses. So, and you've already seen that. If that's not clear to you, that we've got really whacked out weather at this point in time, I don't know what. It's not global warming. It's It's climate change, but it's not climate change from CO2 and cow farts and all that stuff. I mean, climate change is just two words. There's when it goes from winter to spring, that's climate change, is it not? But there are definitely some changes happening, and it's a result of these cycles. Now, we've got several cycles that are all converging at one time, and I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you and try and tell you that I know all of them, because I don't. I am most familiar with the big one. That's what I'm most familiar with. Next up, I'm a little more familiar with the grand solar minimum. Okay, would be the second cycle that I'm more familiar with. However, the big cycle is a pole shift, and it's happened numerous times before. But the sad thing is you've got a lot of people right now out there that's trying to play pole shift off as the same thing as grand solar minimum, and it's not. Not even nowhere near. Grand solar minimum is going to be a pain in the butt, and we're going to we're already starting to see the effects from it, and it's just going to progress, it's going to continue, and it's going to get worse, okay? However, pole shift is separate from that. Completely separate from that. That's right. Exactly right, Stealth. Exactly right. It's getting real close to Russia at this point. And it has been. And it's going to continue to a point. And once it reaches that point, the Earth is going to be on so much of a wobble, which is another thing that we've been experiencing. Everything I'm talking about is verified science. You can go and look up every single thing I'm talking about. It's verified science. However, I don't know why, mainstream media and others, they won't even touch on it. You can't even get them to say the words. It's almost even a taboo topic in some of the survivalist and prepping communities, to be honest. And I think the reason why is because that's not something that's so easily prepared for. You know what I mean? It's not something we can just throw on our bulletproof vest and grab our AR-15 and go fight the weather, right? It doesn't work that way. And so a lot of times, a lot of people think that if they don't talk about something, that it won't exist or it won't happen, right? Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. And like I say, grand solar minimum is going to be one thing, and it's going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to affect how we grow crops. In fact, it's going to largely prevent us from growing crops for a period of time. If you haven't taken measures in order to, facilitate the new conditions, because weather's going to be all jacked up. You're going to essentially need things like greenhouses and stuff like that, so that you can control the environment and basically the conditions that the plants are in. If you pay attention to the homesteading channels and whatnot, the gardening channels, a lot of them have been reporting quite a bit of anomalies in their growing. Things are just different now. Things aren't growing. One particular type of crop isn't necessarily growing in a spot that they've always been able to grow it, and now it won't grow there. But yet something else that normally wouldn't grow there will grow there fine. It's really odd, some of the changes that are happening. Of course, you see the things on the mainstream news even about all the floods going on and all that. That's all part of it. All the heat waves, the record heat, the record cold, all of this. It is all a part of this. Now, I don't know that it's a part of grand solar minimum so much. I think it's more a part of the pole shift. And the reason why I say that is because as this pole is continuing to move further south, we are becoming more unstable on our axis. We're becoming in a bigger wobble. Now that's going to cause a lot of different strange effects, or what seems strange to us. You're going to see things like temperatures fluctuate more. Why? Well, because of the tilt and the wobble of the Earth. That is part of what controls our climate and our temperature on this planet. Is our tilt in, position. So when you start playing around with all of that, you're inevitably going to start affecting the weather. Temperatures. Here's a big thing, and the mainstream weather, if you will, if we can call it that, they really suck. They don't in any way associate magnetism or energy from the sun or anything like that in with the weather. And the crazy thing about that is sun's probably the largest player in our weather. It really truly is. And they don't even include stuff like that. So what we are going to be experiencing here in the short term, okay, I can't tell you how long this is going to take before we actually reach the point of pole shift. And I don't think anybody that would tell you, I don't think can, in all honesty. I won't say that I don't think anybody knows, because I think they know. I think they've been able to hammer it down pretty close. However, us peasants, on the other hand, we just got to put on the blindfold and throw the dart, you know what I mean? So, we're going to continue, as I said, to see these weather conditions, these temperatures and stuff like that. And I don't think that is a part, like I said, of the grand solar minimum. I think that's part of the pole shift and the wobbling of the Earth getting worse. Now, the grand solar minimum is going to cause things like a mini ice age, which is not going to be good. So we've got a myriad of things that are going on and that are building up to this moment of pole shift. So let's talk about pole shift. What's going to happen then? Because there's a lot of conflicting information on this. And again, there's good solid data out there to go by and to be able to draw your own conclusion from. And I am starting to see, and this is, I guess, good news for I guess, my theory, my thought process. I am starting to see a lot of other people that study this, that research this, that theorize this. If I can't even say the word. I am starting to see a lot more of them come to agreement that when the shift happens, it will be 90 degrees and not 180. Okay, I've been saying this for over a decade. I could actually show you on my Facebook how I said it, like 2010 is when I think I first mentioned it. So that 90 degrees. And it's going to be very, very interesting, like I said, as we lead up to it. But when we get to it, I want you to imagine a top spinning, okay? And that top spinning and spinning and spinning, and it starts to slow down. And as it starts to slow down, it gets a little bit more unstable, and then eventually what's it do? It just flops. Our pole's going to do the same thing. It's going to have the exact same effect. And now I'm speaking about the magnetic pole. Now there's two poles we need to talk about here, the magnetic pole and the geographic pole. That magnetic pole, once it reaches a certain spot, and some people say maybe around 40 degrees, or there's varying opinions on that as well, that it will just flop. Now here's the thing. I know there's a lot of debate on what the Earth is made of, how it is made, what's inside it, if anything, because hollow Earth is a theory too, right? I know there's a million theories out there on how the Earth is composed. I'm just going to go with what we've been told for now, okay? Just go with me on that. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because, at least with what we have been told about the Earth and its makeup, at least magnetically it makes sense. Okay, I can give it that. Magnetically it makes sense. So let's go with it. So what's going to happen when you have a charged Earth, you have to understand the Earth is magnetically charged itself, okay? Not just the molten iron, as we're told, that's spinning inside, right? Not just that, but the Earth itself has been magnetized. Not to mention, again, that spinning iron core, as we're told, is also magnetized. And when that magnetic pole goes from this position to this position, it's actually going to drag the geographic pole with it. Not just going to be a magnetic pole shift, folks. It's going to be a geographic pole shift. So I want you to ask yourself a question. We all know what it's like to be standing outside in your yard and the wind blows, correct? Well, you're not standing still. You know the drill. The Earth's spinning so many, you know the drill. However, to us, when we're standing in our front yard, it seems like we're standing still. And you get a light wind or a heavy wind, doesn't matter, blowing you. That is the air. That is air moving across the Earth. Now the Earth is spinning, but because the Earth is pretty constant with its spin, the weather and stuff goes with it, right? It all spins together, right? So if you can imagine the Earth standing still, let's look at it like that. Let's say that everything's spinning just like it is in reality. Let's just say that right now the Earth just stopped spinning still. Just stopped. You know what would happen? All the air current, all the wind, the clouds, the weather, everything else, because of physics, would try to keep continuing in motion. Okay? Can you imagine the wind shear? Can you imagine the wind shear? And that is what we need to be concerned about. The Earth, I'm not saying the Earth's going to stop still. That's not what I'm saying. But when that geographic pole that's spinning one way all of a sudden flops in a different direction, the air, the still air, with a quickly direction changing movement of the Earth, is literally going to shear most everything off the planet. It's not a joke. This is why I think it's important to talk about this, because this isn't something people are talking about. They're not talking about what's going to happen when that still air tries to remain still and the planet just shifts, makes a violent shift. Now, I don't ask anybody to take my word for it or anything else, but you can look it up. Plenty of research to be done on the subject. And you can also pick up the good book. There's plenty of information in there on the subject. I am willing to bet that what happened during Noah's time and what happened in the same time period, right pretty much at the same time of the resurrection, I will guarantee you that both, not one, both of those events were pole shifts. Kind of part of what the Bible was trying to tell us about. That was the warning it was trying to tell us about. Why do I say this? Because it's repeated. It's repeated on almost every single belief system that I've researched. The same story. They're all changed up a little bit. To be honest, the one that's changed the most is Christianity's story. It's the one that's the most changed. But for the most part, they line up pretty well with what they have to say. Now, our Bible, the Christian Bible, or I'm sorry for using that word. You may not. I don't title myself a Christian. I don't label myself Christian. Okay, I'm about as firm in belief as what you can imagine, right? But I don't want that label. So the Bible, whatever. At the end, they tell you about, of course, the death of Yeshua and the resurrection. I'm not going to debate anything. All I'm going to do is I'm going to point out that in the Bible, the Christian Bible, that event most certainly involved a cave. And I think we can all be in agreement on that. That we can all agree on. If you look at all the other belief systems, almost all, let me say almost all, they did the same thing. They went into a cave so that they could resurrect, right? So they could live, so that they could return. Okay? Look it up. Mayans, Aztecs, Hopi, look it up. So the only one that was really kind of, in my mind, notably different than all the others was the Egyptians. And that's because the Egyptians didn't have caves handy, so they built the catacombs. Ever wonder why those were built? If you don't get underground, and that's why I put it as a title, because that is the most important part of this. If you do not get underground when that physical shift happens, you won't stand a chance. I mean, don't get me wrong, there might be spot hit or miss somebody that makes it, but it's really going to be a chance of luck. I don't know how fast that wind is going to seem, and I'm going to say that seem because, the air is going to be sitting still. It's the earth that's going to make a violent, fast shift, okay? So it's going to seem like wind to us when it's really the earth shifting and not the wind. Nonetheless, I can't tell you how fast that's going to be, but I guarantee you it's going to be worse than a thunderstorm. It's also going to do everything the Bible says with the tidal waves, the mountains, all of that. Everything that the Bible describes in Revelation will happen during a pole shift. If you don't get underground, not a lot of chance. Now, the other thing that I had mentioned that I really would wish I could impress on people's minds is wood gasification technology. And it's not some crazy thing that somebody put up on YouTube that's really fake, some type of fake energy production thing. You see a lot of that stuff on. No, it's not a fake. They did it back in World War II. I think mainly in Germany is, I think, where they did it the most, if I'm not mistaken. But they ran their tractors and their cars and all their stuff off wood gas. They essentially attached a wood gasifier to their vehicle and hooked it all up, or a tractor, and that's how they got around, because of the obvious gas shortages and stuff like that. Well, the thing of it is older vehicles and stuff without all this the fuel injection and all the, where everything's got to be ran through sensors and all of that stuff. you can very easily get away with converting them over to run on wood gas. Very easily. And so, it's a good answer for being able to utilize tractors for farming, to be able to utilize other types of vehicles for transportation, logistics, okay, to be able to run things like generators to create power. Okay, you can do all this stuff with wood gasification. Not very hard. Renewable energy. I mean, what are your options post SHTF? If there's no fuel, what are your options? Don't have any. And I mentioned it last night, and I don't know the answer to this. How big of an area that it would take of wheat planted in order to make a loaf of bread. See what I'm saying? How many square feet of planted wheat it would take to be able to get enough flour to make one single loaf of bread. Now, imagine that back in the day, bread was a staple. Families ate it for every meal. Why? Because it was a filler. It would fill you up. Right? You didn't have the luxury of having so much meat and so many vegetables. And in many cases, I'm not saying everybody, but in many cases. So they used bread as a filler. Right? And it was a staple. So I want you to think about that. Your family, 3-4 people, you might go through a loaf of bread a day or close to it. It's a lot of bread, a lot of flour, a lot of wheat. One family. I know a lot of people got great ideas of how they're going to go and farm and sow their way to prosperity. I wished it was that easy. If we had the proper equipment, the horses and the horses trained on the equipment and all that stuff. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Amish, they're not even going to know what happened. They're going to be like, what? The world ended? Okay, well, see you on Tuesday. I mean, that's just how they live. But they can't support all of us. And to be real honest, communities like that probably aren't going to last real long. Not that I'm taking the typical attitude that you see most people take towards the Amish, because I know better. Don't mess with the Amish. For some reason, people got this falsehood in their minds that the Amish are weak, pacifist people. And they are pacifists to a point. But go ahead. Go piss one off. See what happens. See how pacifist they are. A lot of stereotypes aren't quite right. That's one of them. They're just not outward about it. Okay, Amish people are not outward. They don't have ego and pride and stuff like that like the rest of America. They're a little more humble about it. They'll still kick your ass, but they'll be humble about it. Anyway, they're not going to be able to support all of us with what they have. Would they be able to help? Absolutely. They'd be able to help train, help us relearn those ways. But not in enough time to save the masses. Takes a little while to do that. And you've got a nation to train. So, in my opinion, wood gasification's the best and easiest answer. And you can go right, you can, real simple, you can just simply put in Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever you use. Just put in, and just go with FEMA wood gasifier. That's best thing to search. It'll pull it right up. You'll find a PDF for the FEMA wood gasifier, and I highly recommend you print it out. An actual printout, not just saved it on a digital file. I've got one. I've showed it on the show here multiple times. In fact, I was going to grab it right before the show to show you, but it's not right in there. It's actually in the closet in the bedroom, so I didn't have enough time to go grab it. But I do have it put up in a safe place. I know right where it's at, and I would recommend you do the same thing. That will allow us to be able to get those iron monsters going again and be able to plant in bulk and be able to harvest in bulk and be able to do all the things that we need to do our best to save the masses. You know, as I was trying to explain yesterday on the show, it's all good if you've got a group and you just want to try to survive and keep each other alive, but you're just grains in an hourglass. That's a fact. If you want to survive, you got to keep building. And you have to be able to support that growth. It's a race. It's a race for time, a race for resources. And so something like wood gasification is a huge, huge benefit. I think we got a lot of stuff coming, Stealth Survivalist. I don't think we're going to make it that long before we've got so much crazy going on that won't even be a factor. You know, there's so many people wrapped up in the semantics of the stuff going on right now. It ain't going to make a difference. And part of the reason why people are getting wrapped up with it all is to keep them confused and running in circles and talking about the things that really aren't, you know. Okay, let's say I could put even a year on pole shift, and I could say pole shift's going to happen 3 years from now. Okay, does all this other stuff really matter in comparison? Not really. It don't. The things we need to be focused on right now is making sure that we have food and supplies to get through a period of time without. That's it. All the other stuff really does. You need to keep an eye on it. You need to know what's going on. You need to know what SHTF is biting you in the ass. That's all critical information. But to get wrapped up in the semantics of everything, nah. That'd just get you all emotionally involved in everything and non-logical thinking. And that's not a good thing. They do this stuff to keep us chasing our circles. Our tails, sorry. That's what they do. And in the process, we typically, the majority, we're kind of a different breed. We're a lot of the people, if you're here, you're probably prepping, a prepper, trying to learn about prepping or something, something along those lines. So I'm kind of talking to the choir here, but, a lot of people are so wrapped up in the things that don't matter that they're completely neglecting the things that do. And, I think food, clean water, sanitation, things like that, I think are what's important, what's actually important. Yeah, I know. We don't get a lot of people here south. There's this thing about not towing a partisan line and telling the truth. Yeah, it's not real well received, but that's okay. I was sent to do this because I don't have that desire to please people. I don't care. And that strikes a lot of people wrong, and it offends a lot of people, and I'm just going to repeat what I just said. I don't care. I have a pretty decent set of priorities in my life. And probably the least thing, is what others think about me, to be real honest. But it is what it is. I'm telling you, if you allow yourself to get too wrapped up in the semantics of everything, you're going to miss. They've got people going so many different directions right now, it's unreal. And it's going to continue. And they're going to continue to give more directions for people to go, because the more divisions that they can create, the weaker they make us. It's all good. No, are you paranoid if they are out to get you? You know what I mean? Nah, I don't. No, you're not paranoid. You're not paranoid. Absolutely not. Just what it is, you know what I mean? We live in some crazy times, and I'm in a weird position because I'm watching it, and again, I don't allow myself to get emotionally wrapped up in it, and I'm watching it, and I have to admit that at the same time, in one aspect, it's pretty freaky what's going on, and the other aspect is, to me, my opinion is, it's fascinating how this is playing out. Not fascinating in the sense of a positive way, but actually fascinating in the fact that they're getting away with it. That's what fascinates me the most about it all, is that they're pulling it off, and how easily they're pulling it off. And also they're using medications, they're using, they're using the media and all that stuff. And I do believe they're playing with different frequencies, and I think they're doing a lot. I really do think that they're doing a lot to literally assault the human race. And I chose my word carefully there. And I think one of the things they're trying to do is disconnect us from the Father. And I think they've really been trying hard at that for quite some time. And that's one reason I kind of try to reject a lot. I reject TV. We got a TV up there if you wonder why I pointed. I reject television. I reject sports. I reject all this stuff. Because it's, number one, it's not important. It's not. Sorry. Number two, it's very easy to start getting involved in idolatry once you start getting involved in that stuff. So I'm careful about that. I don't. There are some things that really get under the Father's skin. Lying, idolatry, gossip. Those things really get under his skin. Take my word for it. Another thing that really gets under his skin is in any way involving him and money. Right? Probably a bad idea. I mean, Yeshua is known to flip tables and chase people with whips over it. So, but those people that want to do it make excuses. Oh, no, it was because of this reason, that, and that. We're okay to do this, and I'm okay. No, you're not. No, you're not. And you'll find out eventually. And if you, I won't. There's somebody that really needs to be called out hard for what they did, because it is such a slap in the face to the Father. It just really gets me. Really gets me. But I'll just say this. If you allude to people that you're selling a Bible for what it cost you, and in reality you're doing so for a profit, I think that would get Yeshua flipping tables and chasing with whips. Hands down. I think it would happen. So anyway, let me get off. That's nothing to do with any of the subject, but you're right, it is programming, and that is all it is. And I think it's programming on multiple levels. I actually avoided HD for a long time, and I didn't embrace it because I think any differently. I don't watch much, to be honest. But I think, and this is just me, it's common sense, really. I think with HD, there's a lot more that they can do subliminally than what they could before with the lower resolutions. I think there's a whole lot of stuff that they can do now subliminally with the high resolutions and with the high definition audios and stuff like that. I think there's a whole lot that they can do that goes right along those lines of the programming, and I think they do. I think they absolutely do. I'm very careful of what I take in, and that's why. That's why. Anyway, let me real quick pull up the web browser just so I can show you guys how quick, simple, and easy this is. I've got it on dark mode, so. If anybody's wondering why my Google looks weird. I like, if you couldn't tell, dark screens. So, and there's going to be a ton of links that have it. Actually, I should have put it in PDF. Yeah, here we go. PDF. Just put in FEMA wood gasifier PDF, and you will find tons of links. And there's even one somewhere from, I think, from FEMA, but it doesn't matter. Just get one. And you're good to go. I don't think, wait a minute, this ain't the one. Sorry, that's the downdraft. Now, I'm not telling you which one to use or not use or anything like that, but I will tell you that probably the easiest, if you've never built one before, probably the easiest is going to be this one right here, okay? And this is going to be the first page, so you know it is a construction of a simplified wood gas generator for fueling internal combustion engines in a petroleum emergency. Okay, and you'll see a picture of a tractor with what looks to be like a 55-gallon drum or something strapped to the front of it, right? That is actually the wood gasification system. So, and this is a real picture. This isn't, craziness or tinfoil hat stuff. This is for real. There's a guy, Wayne Keith, I believe is his name on YouTube, and every once in a while he posts a video of him driving in his wood gasifier truck. He's been making videos for years about his truck. So, but that's it. That's a FEMA wood gasifier, and even if you're not mechanically inclined or anything like that, do everyone a favor and literally, physically print out a copy of this and make sure you keep tabs on where it is. And if those lights go out or those trucks stop delivering fuel for any reason, remember where you put it, because somebody is probably going to be a little good with tools and be able to figure out the instructions. It's not real hard. And believe it or not, they do a really good job of explaining, the idea, the theory behind it and stuff, so that if you do need to make any minor changes, you can. Actually, this was, that might have started here, that other one I saw, because that's the invert, the downdraft. But that one is a little more complex. You'd probably be better to build just the simplified one. So. At least the first time. I have built, oh gosh, I couldn't tell you how many of the simplified I built. I honestly don't know. Over 2 dozen. I can safely say over 2 dozen, maybe close to 3 dozen of the simplified. I've only built one of the invert. So the one that's like that. So that's a little different design than the other one. Anyway, do yourself and everyone around you a favor and get a copy of this. And I would definitely recommend you look into whatever possibilities you may have on being able to get underground. Um, you're right, solar will fail when the sky is covered. Solar's going to fail. I don't know that the sky is going to be covered for an extremely long amount of time. But there are several things that I need to work on consolidating my thoughts and make a list. Because there are several things, and even you could go back to different belief systems and look at different important events with different belief systems, and you can actually pull out some of the important things that you're going to need for preps. And let me give you an example. Hanukkah is the celebration of miraculously having enough oil in the lamp to provide light. Now, from all their accounts, they didn't think they were going to have enough. In fact, kind of crazy talk to think that they would have had enough. But they did. They had enough oil for their lamp. Think you might need some oil for your lamp? I do. Why? See, I really think that when it comes to the Christian/biblical understanding of the events, I do think that they've been played with. And I do think that there's a lot of those in the know that aren't being straight. So there will be a period of time, and as Stealth had said, there will be a period of time of darkness. There's no doubt about that. For multiple reasons. It's not just one reason. Multiple reasons there will be a period of darkness. Now, when we talk about prepping, a lot of people talk, they want to go straight to defense and food, if you can get them talking about food. Mostly it's bullets and bulletproof vests. And at some point, hopefully you can get people from talking about the guns and all that to food and all that. Light. Nobody ever wants to talk about light. Why? Because it's light, right? The only time somebody wants to talk about light is when they go out and spend $300 on a flashlight they didn't need to show off to their friends. It's the only time anybody wants to talk about light. But I would argue this: the light is so important that it was the Father's very first command. Now, I think we're supposed to look at that too. Very first command: let there be light. Why? Well, it was necessity for life, was it not? That doesn't change. That doesn't change. So if you're down underground and you don't have enough oil for your lamp, how are you going to see to prepare food, to eat, to protect yourself, to do this, to do that? Make sure you got light covered. And go far. I don't have it here. I always have it here. I always have it here. It's not. My knife's not even here either. They're still on the headboard. I never brought them in here. I normally have my flashlight. You guys see it every show. It's not here today. Anyway, that LED flashlight, don't count on it working. Don't count on it working. Make sure you've got lamps, oil lamps and oil. And I'm serious with that. Make sure you have the foolproof light. Okay? And have the LED lights and this and that and that. Have all that. Because if it works, great. But if it don't, make sure you got the old school stuff too. I don't think it'll be 7 years of darkness. I think it's going to be 7 days. But, yeah. It's not going to be 7 years. It'll be 7 days. But, what's 7 days? You can't go by our Gregorian calendar because that's not the Father's calendar. So I don't know what 7 days is. But as far as, like 7 years our time, no. No. You have to understand, as said in the word, that our time compared to his is like the blink of an eye. Okay? So, what could be 100,000 years for him, literally a blink of an eye for us. Well, I wouldn't say 100,000, but nonetheless. I think that I think it's going to be probably roughly about 7 days. Probably, and close to that for what we look at 7 days, I would say. I don't think it's going to be real far off. But yeah, could you imagine 7 days in total darkness? How many people would die? Just that alone. Forget about everything else with the wind shear and the tidal waves and the earthquakes and the volcanoes, and forget about all that. Just from the darkness itself, how many people will perish? A lot. A lot. Might be a good idea to let there be light. Seems like I've heard it somewhere. So that's really about the most I can tell you, because there's unfortunately not anywhere where we can go to get absolute direct information on when it comes to pole shift, other than what data we have been able to collect on it. A lot of it's theories and a lot of this and that. But we also do have some actual hard data, like from Earth's core samples and stuff like that. We've actually got an impressive amount of data of, what has happened and how, or at least a basis of how. And that's another reason why I say 90 degrees, and that's the reason why science is starting, the science community, I should say, is starting to come around to that 90-degree shift versus the 180, is because there's actual evidence of that in I don't know what it is, that they're pulling up all the different core samples of, but a lot of information coming out in the recent years about this. And I do believe, and I'll throw this little caveat in there as well, there is a period of time to where if you were like a climate scientist, you had a really crappy life expectancy. And I think the reason why is because I think there was a lot of climate scientists and I can't remember the word I'm looking for. There was a bunch of them that disappeared. A bunch of them that disappeared. Some of them died, the Arkansas thing. There was a ton of them. We ought to probably ask ourselves why. I think that they knew a lot of this information, had a lot of this information, and I think that they just didn't, the ones that wanted to come out on it, I think died or disappeared. And I think the other ones have just remained silent so they don't die or disappear. You do have a few talking about it now, but largely they get, cast out as wacko. Probably the best person to follow on this particular subject, hands down, is Suspicious Observers. Not a fan of the dude's politics, but this isn't about his politics. He has been covering this for a long time and has the most accurate models and theories that I think I've seen out there. Doing a really good job on it. Incredible job. And so I highly recommend, if you don't follow Suspicious Observers, that you do so. Every morning he puts out a morning update as to what's going on with the sun. Now's a good time to start paying attention again, because sunspots are starting to ramp up. A lot of solar activity is, this solar cycle is really kind of kicking off with a bang, no pun intended. So a lot of stuff to keep on there. Don't let people fearmonger you with it. There are channels out there, and this is one thing that Suspicious Observers absolutely does not do, and that's one reason I like his channel so much. He doesn't fearmonger you. In fact, he can't stand it. He can't stand all the channels out there that every time there's a solar flare that blows off the sun, they're all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it could somehow wrap around to do a 90 degree and then turn around. Really? And there's some channels that are horrid about that. But believe me, if you hear Ben Davison, Suspicious Observers, tell you to run for the hills, you better get running. Because that dude, he stays pretty calm about most everything I've seen when it comes to this stuff. Politics is a different story. He gets a little riled up about that. He's a little extreme. Okay, he's a lot extreme. But again, that's a totally different story. Anyway, I would keep an eye on what he's reporting on it. His website, his multiple websites, I will say, has really incredible information. The one site that I have been giving out for many years, probably over a decade now, is magneticreversal.org, and I probably missed keys and all that. Wait, I might have got it. I thought I missed keys. magneticreversal.org is the site that I commonly give people because it's really not got a lot. I mean, really, that I'm scrolling the entire page. That's it. But if you want to get somebody started off on understanding what's going on with pole shift and this magnetic reversal, this is a good place to go. And he's got the videos on here showing how the poles have shifted, from 1600 to 2015, how the poles have shifted, and then he's got other videos explaining the different aspects of it. And here's the amazing thing. His sources. This guy's not just talking out his butt. He's really good at what he does. I would say he's leading edge of what he does. And I'm talking about Suspicious Observers. He's the one that owns and runs this site. He's really good at what he does. And I would pay close attention to what he says on this stuff. And I'm going to repeat it. If he tells you to run, you better run. You better run. Nonetheless, this is the elephant in the room, folks. This is the elephant in the room. This is the one thing that plate carriers and AR-15s and all the cool tactical stuff, a lot of it ain't going to make a big bit of difference. We're going to have to be underground. Going to have to be able to live underground for at least a short period of time. And I don't have all the answers to it because there are so many things that will happen during this event. Like to my knowledge, there'll be a period of time that we lose the magnetic shield that's protecting the Earth. You see it here indicated in the blue and the red, the magnetosphere. We'll lose that for a period of time, from my understanding. And during that period of time, once we don't have that magnetosphere, all of that energy from the sun is going to be slamming right straight into the Earth with no protection at all. Seems like a book somewhere told me something about a third of the Earth would burn. Seems like I read that somewhere. So, without that protection and all that energy from the sun slamming into the Earth, it's going to be ugly. Now, I suspect, this is me, I suspect that during that period of time we're going to lose oxygen for the most part. Now, I don't think that period of time that there is absolutely zero protection from the sun, I don't think that's going to be an extended period. I think that's going to be a pretty short thing. Ain't going to seem too short if you're on that third of the Earth, though, I'll tell you that. but I think it's going to be a pretty short thing, and I think the sun will start, or not the sun. I think the Earth will start spinning enough to be able to build that magnetic field up again to be able to protect us, to be able to shield us. I don't think it's going to be long-lived. But only reason I'm mentioning this is because I would never be able to forgive myself if I didn't. And, if, for instance, I'm sitting in a cave with my oxygen bottle, and I lived because I had a stupid little Boost oxygen bottle, hint, hint, then I would deserve to be stripped out of the book of works, the book of life, all of it, because I didn't pass that on to you. So I'm not going to make that mistake. I suspect that there will be a period of time, no matter how short, that we'll lose the oxygen. So you can get little bottles of oxygen now rather easily. Might not be a bad idea just to have some. Not just, for a myriad of reasons, but that's one too. Yeah, but the only problem is there won't be any plants or anything like that because they'll all be sheared off. So there won't even be any of that, which is going to be the other issue too. However, there's a lot of oxygen that comes from the oceans too. I know that trees really get a lot of credit for oxygen. Trees really aren't the biggest provider of oxygen. In fact, look at hemp. How much more oxygen that hemp can produce than a tree. It's not even close. I know somebody was talking about just how much oxygen that the ocean provides, and I think it's the majority. So I don't think I don't think much on top of the earth is going to make it. I don't. But that being said, I don't want people to think that if the majority of the trees are sheared off the earth, that we're going to have oxygen starvation, because the earth gets oxygen a lot more ways than those trees, folks. I can't remember who it was that was talking about that, about how the ocean was a much bigger supplier of oxygen than trees. So, but I would be ready, and I would have some sort of oxygen bottles to at least get you through. I can't tell you how long. I don't know. I have no idea. A lot of this, none of us can give you any exacts on it because none of us have been through it, and there's no clear documentation that we can get our hands on. I'll put it that way. I don't know whether there's documentation on it or not. I do know it's awful interesting that particular chunk of the Mayan calendar is gone. I think it's awful interesting that the Bible just stops at where it did. Doesn't it seem like there maybe should be something a little more there? I do. And there actually was. I'll let you look into that for yourself. And check out the other belief systems too. They don't just, they go on a little bit longer than what ours does and what the Mayan did. If you want a real interesting one to research Hopi. Research Hopi. No, they don't. They don't have underground shelters for citizens, and that's one of the things. I was speaking with you, Stealth, in comments, I believe this morning, if I'm not mistaken. And I was talking to you, and I was explaining to you about my particular situation where I'm at. We've got an idea. Well, my group is taken care of, and I'm just going to leave that at that. My group is taken care of. However, we have a town here, we have a community that is not, as a whole, right? And so, like I said, my intent is to help save lives and to rebuild, to help rebuild. That's my intent. That's my goals. In order to do that, people need to be able to survive. And I told you that we pretty much, we have an ideal spot. And that is for so many reasons it's unreal why we have an ideal spot. But one of them is, and I've told this story before, the town that we lived in, the reason why it's here to begin with is because somebody decided way back when to build a brewery. And, this is farm country. And so, a lot of farmers, they could grow the hops and all the other stuff, the barley and all that they needed for the beer. And so eventually there was 2 breweries in town, and that is essentially what created the town, why the town was here, right? The breweries and the associated businesses to keep the breweries going. Well, then Prohibition hit. And what happened was, instead of letting the town just go under and become a ghost town, some of the wealthy members of the town decided, we're just going to take the operation underground, literally. And so, and I mean, it's not a big secret or anything like that. Well, some of it's not very talked about, but like I say, some of it's not very talked about. But right here, and I'll bring it up. You're upsetting yourself, dude. Yeah, I know. Like you guys haven't known where I live ever since, there are so many people that freak out over that, and it's like, really? Information is so easy to get right now. So what went on is they took the operation underground, and that's what this article talks about. I was trying to see if they, I don't know where in the article it is, but as you can read kind of like the headline part here, visiting the famous shot cave. So what they did is they dug this big cave essentially under the ground and moved the brewery under the ground. Well, they also wanted a way for the workers to be able to get back and forth to the brewery, not just the workers, but also the town lushes, to be able to get back and forth to the brewery without being seen, right? Because they couldn't get caught. And so what they did is they built a tunnel system in town here. They built a tunnel system for the the workers. I call them workers. They were probably migrant workers, for them and for again the more wealthy people to be able to go to the brewery. There's a lot of houses in this town, not like a lot, but there's a fair amount of houses, the old houses, that are connected to that tunnel system. Now they've been mostly blocked off now, so that the people can't actually access the tunnel system from their basement. But believe me, there's still ways to access those tunnels, and it's cinder blocks, sledgehammer, done deal. But we do have a fairly decent sized tunnel system in town here that is very well constructed. It's lined with stone. I mean, it's literally stone slabs is what it's lined with. It's pretty amazing what they did. Pretty amazing. Now, the tunnels aren't talked about in this article, but it does talk about the cave part. So there you go. There's that part of the equation for the area that I'm in. But there are so many other factors too. Well, of course, it's not desert or anything like that. We've got plenty of water here, but we've got a lake just outside of town. We've got our own water treatment plant, all that good stuff. So we've got a good water source. We've got a way to clean the water as long as we got the supplies and the energy to do it. Energy, what's that? Oh, we've got our own power plant. We've got our own electrical power plant. We don't use it. The town buys in bulk from Ameren and then resells it to us. But if need be, if Ameren just completely went down, our town has the capability of flipping some switches and kicking on a generator and powering the town. We have that capability. Not a whole lot of places do. And we're just shy of like 10,000 people. We're not a huge town, which also makes it ideal. We're just right in about that size of town to where the riffraff isn't quite too bad. It's manageable. And the town still has an old enough mindset that I think you'd be able to work wonders with the people here. And so that's kind of a little bit of a longer explanation of what I meant in the comments earlier to you about why we live in such, I think, a great location to survive and rebuild after a major event. So a lot of benefits about this area. A lot of good benefits about this area. The only bad thing about it is we're in Illinois. But you wouldn't know it. This is like a Mayberry, right? It's you wouldn't know it. If you were in this town, you would have no idea that you were in the state of Illinois. Very, very heavily conservative town. So much of Illinois is conservative, actually. Unfortunately, we got Chicago up there that ruins it for the rest of us. So, and that's pretty much really what happens. Okay, I think that pretty much I covered as much on pole shift that I know to cover. I mean, yeah, there's a lot more. There's a whole hell of a lot more. But it's kind of one of those things to where, like I said, if it's something that I talk too much about or go too much into, it's going to have the opposite effect. It's actually going to drive people away, which is why I don't talk about it a lot. It's why I don't make it the topic of conversation very often, because that's the last thing that I want people to do. I need people to hear this and at least tuck it back in their mind so that as time goes on and they see these weather events and everything else starting to get crazier and crazier and crazier, it will be a reminder in the back of their head, hey, that one crazy dude said that at some point one day there's going to be something really whacked out happen. Yeah. It's a big deal. It's the elephant in the room that I don't think a whole lot of preppers are prepared for. Make sure you've got some underground plans. I'm just saying. And when you see things start getting crazy, really crazy with the weather, make sure you got stuff prepared to go under, at least. But I will say this. If you live like in latitudes that you normally wouldn't see the northern lights, and you start seeing them, it's time to get under. That's the only sign. I can't guarantee you that it's a sign that you're going to see ahead of time or in enough time ahead of time. I can't guarantee any of that. But at some point during that process, we will start having that effect, the aurora borealis, the northern lights. We will start having that effect because of that magnetosphere getting weaker and weaker and weaker and all those charged particles hitting the atmosphere. So it's going to be really widespread. Really widespread. And if you start seeing a lot of that going on, I would really be considering getting ready to go under. So, just a camper. That works. That works. I'm whatever, you know. I I'm not one that latches onto any labels too much, but uh, I won't deny being a prepper. Um, there's a lot of people that will discourage you from talking about it or giving up your OPSEC and stuff like that. And yeah, I get it. I'm in quite a bit of a different position, and I'm not just speaking for YouTube, but with what I've got going on with my personal life and stuff too. And I don't share a lot of what I've got going on with groups or anything like that. I don't share a lot of it with anyone. Because it's nobody's business, quite frankly. But I don't deny it. And if I get a chance to talk about it, I absolutely do. I don't care about all the crazy looks, the stares, and all that. I don't care. Remember what I said earlier. I really, truly don't care what people think about me. Never did. Never did. It's not important. I try to spread the word as much as I can. And unfortunately, it doesn't get as far as I'd like it, especially here locally, because that's what counts to us all. It's what's local to us. And being that I mentioned that it's a very heavily conservative town, that's got positives and negatives both. It's got both. We have a lot of the it could never happen here crowd here. So getting people to prep here, not an easy task in this particular town. Not an easy task because, I'm telling you, man, crazy mindsets. Anyway, let me do some headlines, get the hell out of here, because I'm once again trying to turn this into a 2-hour night or something, I think, which is not the intent. I do try to keep the shows somewhere around an hour-ish or just a little bit longer because most people won't even watch that. Most people won't watch anything over about 5 minutes, and I can't do 5 minutes. But I do try to keep it reasonable. Anyway, let's see some headlines and get out of here for the evening. That's weird. I don't know what it was I just heard. Kind of an odd noise. Alright. All stuff from today. That I put out today. Let me clarify that. Tunisian president ousts government, warns opponents that army will respond with bullets if they try to unleash street violence. So now this is in Tunisia. The amount of unrest and the amount of ousted presidents and governments and all that just here in the recent is mind-boggling. I don't think coincidental by any means, but it's certainly mind-boggling. Russia is finally embracing the electric vehicle boom. I'm not surprised. I'm not. Not in the least. Afghanistan on course for highest number of civilian casualties ever. UN warns 1 month before U.S. withdrawal deadline. Russia inks deal worth over $3.5 billion during Make's 2021 air show. And I know I've been sharing a lot of these types of headlines about this, this air show and stuff over in Russia. And I get it. It's Russia. It's not this stuff's still important. All this economy, all these deals, all this, the military sales, the weapon sales, whatever, planes and all that stuff, all that's incredibly important stuff. You have to understand why our amount of income, so to speak, I'm talking about as a nation, is going down. These other nations are going up. India, China, Russia. They're going up. Up. And this is one of the ways they're doing it. With military weaponry and stuff like that. They're also doing it, as you know, with energy. And these countries are building. And they're building fast and they're building big. I don't know what the hell we're doing. But that's why I share this stuff, because we need to keep an eye on this. Because the quicker and bigger that these other countries build, the less time we have. Less time we have. Because we only know how to do one thing when it comes to situations like that, and that's go to war. So, I guarantee you that the United States of America isn't just going to let the U.S. dollar collapse or drop from the world currency, either or and, because it could be an and, most likely will be an and, without going to war. I mean, just look at history. That's a huge reason why we even get into big, large global conflicts is because of financial situations across the globe. So keep an eye on that. Beijing demands withdrawal of sanctions and meeting with U.S., blaming Washington for stalemate and creating an imaginary enemy. Asian COVID hotspot Indonesia to receive 45 million COVID vaccines in August as government eases curbs despite warnings. Second judoka quits Tokyo Olympics before facing Israeli opponent who Algerian refused to meet over Palestine conflict. So now this is the second one. And I know I've been saying here recently I wish they would leave the Olympics alone, and I still wish they would leave the Olympics alone. At least that. I mean, come on. You done screwed up NASCAR and basketball, and I don't like sports. I'm not into sports. I care less about it. In fact, I kind of think maybe it'd be better off without all the sports and distractions, right? Bread and circuses. I think we'd be better off. But nonetheless, you know, we watched basketball and baseball and football and, you know, have they went after golf yet? They need to go after golf. You want to put an end to all this crazy, stupid stuff? Let them go hit the golf world. And believe me, somebody will put an end to it because those people got the money to put the end to it. Anyway, besides that, this is actually a big, big, big thing, in my opinion. Seriously. How often do you see, whatever you want to call this, a snub or whatever, how often do you see something that in your face being done that public to Israel? Not often. Not often. It's a big thing. Big thing. So, again, I wish that the Olympics would be left alone. They wouldn't be used for a billboard for everybody's agenda. But crazy things happening this time around, that's for sure. I am in support of one thing going on, though, and we'll cover it in the news, involving the Olympics. I'm in absolute, enormous support of it, and we'll cover that when we get to it. Bitcoin bulls back as world's top crypto surges towards $40,000. Knife-wielding assailant dies in custody days after being detained over attempted assassination of Mali's leader. Isn't that amazing how that happens? Right? It's like that Cernoff brother that pretty well okay in the beginning, and then, I don't know, maybe after he'd been shot and ran over by a car and all that stuff, he didn't make it. But they don't know what happened. China sees biggest COVID-19 surge in months, orders second round of mass testing in Nanjing. French Parliament approves bill forcing vaccination for medical workers and greater health pass use amid growing protests. Indian rescue efforts impeded by worst monsoon rains in decades as West Coast state death toll reaches 149. Leading Russian communist politician Grudinin, I'm sure I said that wrong, barred from running an election after ex-wife reveals hidden foreign investments. I hope the non-vaxxers change their minds. That's a quote. Club doctor urges football stars to take COVID jab and blames the internet for lies and nonsense. And I don't normally cover sports stuff here, but it kind of diving into news a little bit. And I'll tell you what, I am actually shocked at the level at which some individuals here in the United States involved in sports, namely football, have been standing up against this. So, and kudos to those coaches and players that have been standing up against this medical tyranny going on. Kudos to them. So, Ukrainian Security Council sanctions Russia's richest woman and her online delivery empire Wildberries, barring it from the country. Al Jazeera says Tunisian police raided its office, expelled journalists, and seized equipment amid ongoing political crisis. UK looks to ban Chinese nuclear firm from country's energy project, says reports. Somebody needs to change a channel on their security system. I got to do that every once in a while. Former Australian Liberal National Party leader blasts colleagues for abandoning fundamental Australian values during COVID-19. I don't know if other people around here or something have security systems or whatever that do like an automatic channel switch every so often. But every so often I have to do a manual channel switch because there's some kind of interference and it like rotates around, you know what I mean? So yeah, so that I don't know if you guys see it on there. That I get a screen once in a while, it'll go black. Probably sticks out like a sore thumb. So after the show I will be logging in and fixing that. It'd be good for another month. Russian shaman who attempted 7,000-kilometer walk to exercise Putin, not exercise as in the walking, but exorcise as in head spinning. Putin sent to mental health institution for observation. So, she sided that one, huh? I thought it was a decent joke. It was fair, right? It was a fair joke. Give me that one. So anyway, this whole thing is mind blowing to me. How all these nations are cracking down so hard on both faith and speech, all of that, and that's. To me, they're cracking down on all of it at one time on this guy. It's a shame. What harm is it if he walks 7,000 kilometers? What's he gonna harm? Putin superstitious or something? Shouldn't have nothing to worry about, right? Right? It just makes me wonder, when we've got to stop people from doing things that aren't harming anybody else. I'm just curious why we got to stop them. Russia building high-tech replacement for secretive nuclear doomsday plan with boosted range and improved capabilities, says reports. We just, I believe, updated ours. Like when Trump got in office, I think? We upgraded ours. Not like new planes, but I think we did a lot of updates on the current ones. Spot the Fed, DEF CON hacker event roasted on social media after inviting top U.S. Homeland Security official as keynote speaker. Hey, there's a lot of hackers that are getting decent jobs right now in the government sector. So, protecting. Well, probably not all protecting, but some of them are, Actually, it's honest living. Hacking is a good money-making honest living. So, believe it or not. Well, not malicious hacking, but having that ability, being able to ward off the hacks. You know what I mean. UK on alert for new versions of highly contagious Delta variant, says COVID-19 coding expert after country lifts restrictions. Iran surpasses 30,000 coronavirus cases as record number of new infections reported amid Tehran lockdown. We have not taken this step lightly. New Zealand announces decision to allow suspected ISIS-linked woman to return from Turkey. I mean, my opinion, not that it matters on this. None of our opinions matter on this. It's clearly up to Turkey. I mean, New Zealand. But, hey, if she screwed up, and it's obvious she screwed up, let's not hold it against her the rest of her life. None of us would like that done to us. And we've all made mistakes. Some of them probably big ones. I know I have. Ever been married? No, I'm kidding. No. We've all made mistakes. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. And usually they're not like as big as maybe joining ISIS, but and hopefully they aren't. But we do screw up. And I could see, just look at the world right now. It's easy to understand how somebody could be that confused. It really is. Really is. And it's unfortunate. Japanese PM Suga's approval rating hits new low following dissent over Olympics. Shocked motorists beep their horns as Asian black bears walk onto highway to beg for food from cars in Russia's Far East. So, I kind of wondered when I read this headline. You got to understand, a lot of the headlines I cover are from RT. And it's funny the amount of people that go, well, that's Russia. That's Russia Today. That's nothing but Russian propaganda. Do you know the most propaganda that I see come out of RT is against the Russian people? Not really so much against us. You're right. It is a Russian publication. But they're actually pretty accurate with most of what they put out. They're pretty dead on. Most of the propaganda is actually aimed at Russians. So, and you can see that. But it almost seem like they're even saying that the even the bears are starving as far as like neglect. The poor things, they were out in the road begging for food from cars. Anyway, Philip Morris claims it wants to solve the problem of smoking by ending cigarette sales in the UK. I just don't think it's worth it for him anymore. Not so beneficial for him anymore. The UK really truly wants to help people quit smoking and live healthier. In that aspect, I'm not saying in all aspects, I'm saying in that aspect. They've even got vape shops in their hospitals, and I've talked about it before. You can go buy an e-cigarette right inside of a hospital there because they don't sit there and skew crap because big tobacco, right? I don't think it's worth it to them anymore. And I think you're going to see a lot of things start changing as far as laws, and I think you're going to see, and that's if things even remotely hold together long enough. But I think you're going to start seeing a lot of things get reversed. Like these tobacco companies and how we can't really go after them as individuals and all that because of the master settlement agreement. Yeah, it's a thing. Trust me. You can Google it, master settlement agreement. You'll be shocked. You'll be shocked at what went on there. But I think that's why you're going to see them start pulling out, because I think they're going to be held liable. So, I mean, when I say those words, understand, I'm not saying that it's the tobacco company's fault that somebody picked up a cigarette and started smoking, because it's not. Okay? But by adding extra addictive chemicals and all the other things that they do, surely isn't helping the matter any. So, everybody's got to take responsibility for their part in it. Russian regulators block website of jailed opposition figure Alexei Navalny weeks after activist operations branded extremist. Making sure, and this is it. Making sure everyone feels comfortable. A German woman's gymnastics wear full bodysuits at Olympics to battle sexualization. I support this a million times over. I really don't need to see their ass cheeks hanging out. I don't. They're beautiful women. It has nothing to do with that. If I am watching an Olympic event, which is probably going to be a rarity, I don't need to see their ass cheeks hanging out. I don't need to know just how close they shaved their punini. I don't need to know. I don't. And neither does anybody else. And you're going to get a lot of people like, oh, blasphemy for them wearing that outfit. But they'll have 1,000,001 excuses as to why it's horrid that they're covering themselves up. Sick, disgusting people. I will probably watch a little more Olympics now that they are dressed. And I mean that. The other thing that I will add with a big rubber stamp is that maybe if this can carry on into the training as well, that there will be a lot less pedophilia go on in the whole Olympic training realm. You know what I mean? That they wouldn't be sexualizing these little bitty kids so much like they do. It's disgusting. Really, truly is. And people wonder why we hear stories about, you know, this gymnastics coach or this swim coach or whatever. What do you think was going to happen when you've got them with that person for all that time? We're talking some massive amount of time here. Half naked. What do you think's going to happen? I don't know. That I have sat and thought about that at length. You know, the thought of having a child that would be gifted enough to be able to compete in the Olympics. That road, that journey to it, and how hard it would be to trust, like, the trainers and stuff like that, to not be doing that kind of stuff. Because I'm going to be real honest with you, I think it's rampant. I think there's so much, you know, not just pedophilia, but sexual stuff, because, you know, pedophilia is just for children. I think it's happening with the adults, too. I think there's so much going on related to sexual abuse when it comes to Olympics training. I think it's insane. And I think this could help. Could. As long as it also carries on into the training, too. So I'm for it. I'm good with it. I'm absolutely good with it. I don't think that this is, you know, I think that they're doing it as a woke thing, but I don't consider this as a woke thing. This is just decency. This is respect. Right on. Now, you notice they're fighting it. They don't, you know, as far as like the Olympics committee and stuff like that, they don't want to have it. But I don't know what to tell them. I think it's a woman's right to put on clothes if she chooses to, don't you? Hundreds of Malaysian contract, hundreds of Malaysians contract doctors I'm reading this wrong. Sorry. Hundreds of Malaysian contract doctors staged protests for better working conditions as country battles rising COVID infections. That's why I kept screwing it up. I'm not used to using the term contract doctor. Coon Island renamed by Australian councillors despite local opposition after name deemed genuinely racist. Oh, I don't know why, what aspect, you know. I don't know why they called it Coon Island. Let's see. Equatorial Guinea shuts UK embassy after London imposes sanctions in violation of principle of international law. Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, when they named a raccoon, that wasn't anything racist. And I know that around here, most people, if they're referring to a raccoon, they call it a coon, and it's not racist. It's a coon, a raccoon. That's what they're talking about. Just the way it is. And the only reason I mention that is I don't know if that has any basis as to why this island was named that. I have no idea. You know, if it did have a racist connotation, then it should be addressed. But if it didn't, and it was named, based on an animal or something, people need to get a grip and get a life. Twitter wars, U.S. Army general mocked after accusing critic of being a shill for Putin in embarrassing outburst. Lebanese billionaire Makati appointed PM with backing of Hezbollah and Amal after months of stalemate. And this is the same story, just a different article. No, it's actually not. Sorry, different story. Feminist icon Pink offers to pay women's beach handball teams fines for swapping bikini bottom for shorts. See, they're getting fined for this, for not sexually exposing themselves. They're having to pay a fine for it. And Pink jumped in and offered to cover that fine. So, not a big fan of Pink, but right on there. She's got my support there. Dozens of U.S. healthcare groups call for mandatory vaccines for medical workers as part of ethical commitment to patients. U.S. education watchdog warns of shadow justice system if Biden reverses Trump-era due process rules for campus sexual misconduct. Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine antibodies begin to fade 6 months after second dose, says a study. New York City Mayor de Blasio demands full vaccination for all city workers by September and threatens tough consequences for mask flouters. I don't think that the whole lockdown mask thing is going to work out real well. I don't think so. A lot of pissed off people in this country. A global mission led by Interpol sees over 280 human smuggling suspects arrested and 430 victims freed. A tropical storm is going to hit Japan on Tuesday, and Olympic organizers are being accused of lying about extreme conditions. I mean, if I had ever seen an Olympics that have been damned in my entire life. I mean, at what point do you think that the IOC needs to step back and say, maybe we should have held off? EU sends help to Italy as hundreds are evacuated from island of Sardinia amid wildfires raging for days. A woman was stabbed in Hyde Park. Media and authorities are acting as if she had it coming for wearing a Charlie Hebdo shirt. And isn't that ridiculous? I get disapproving of what somebody else is doing, and I get anger. And I even understand violence to an extent. But you didn't have to stab somebody, right? I mean, if what they're doing or what they're wearing or whatever is that absolutely offensive that you feel you need to act out in a physical manner, dot them in the eye. You don't have to stab them or shoot them or kill them. But that shouldn't even be a thing. Shouldn't even be a thing. It shouldn't matter to you what other people think about you. Shouldn't even be a thing. Let's see. Veterans Affairs becomes first U.S. government agency to mandate COVID-19 vaccinations for some staff. And how much you want to bet before it's all over with They're going to want everybody that's on VA. How much you want to bet? Big tech companies to target right-wing militias and attacker manifestos through same database used to identify terrorists. Yeah, that is a little concerning. So now we've got big tech companies that are essentially going to be playing FBI/NSA. Isn't that crazy? I mean, they have been. I get it. They already have been. But I mean, they're actually going to be doing it in an actual capacity now. That's horrifying. Biden administration declares long COVID, or there's other terms to call it too, long haulers. There's a few different terms for it, and it's a thing. It does exist. Anyway, he declares them. He actually declares it an actual disability eligible for accommodation under civil rights law. And I know a lot of people might, give him more. No, I'm actually a member of a group on Facebook of these long haulers, and there's a lot of hypochondriacs in the group. Let me get that right out of the way. But there's also a lot of people in the group that seriously have been dealing with this for a long time now, for, some of them over a year. And they call them long haulers, and there's so many varying different degrees and different symptoms and stuff like that in and of these long haulers. And some of it's pretty horrific. It's some of these people are living a hell ever since they got COVID. And so that's all this is. This is allowing people that have serious detrimental, life-changing effects from this can get help. There's no problem with that. There shouldn't be a problem with that. If you're sick and you need help, you should be able to get help. That shouldn't be a question. And if it is, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I don't agree with just handing a bunch of money out to everybody and anybody for whatever reason. But those people that need it, they shouldn't have to fight for it. They shouldn't have to beg. Shouldn't have to, they're already not going to be living a fancy life, right? Do you really need them to give up their dignity too? I don't. Let's see. Anti-lockdown Tennessee pastor tells mask wearers they are not welcome. I'm not playing these Democrat games. So that was his quote. And you're going to see a lot of this. They're going to see a whole lot of this. Biden says U.S. combat mission in Iraq will be over by year's end, but won't say how many troops to remain deployed. Probably because he can't remember. As Chicagoans, hell, he probably can't remember which ones are his troops. As Chicagoans keep getting shot, Mayor Lightfoot doubles down on racist media policy of talking only to non-white reporters. And I know, and I should not make comments like that, and it really rubs the father wrong when I make comments like that, and I apologize to him and you as well. I'm human. And I'm frustrated. I'm sorry for making comments like that, but we better do something. I mean, look at this stuff. Look at this. I'm sure some lawyer hack out there can get this woman excused from violating the First Amendment because, she let some reporters in. We need to stop playing their games. All this ignorance that is caused by them, will end the moment we stop playing their games. Stop thinking you're going to fix it in the voting booth. Stop thinking that you've got any chance of getting anywhere in a court of law. Got to stop chasing our tails. They create all these systems for us to work in so we can't get anywhere. And they can do whatever the hell they want. And as long as we're busy doing something, for the most part, people don't know any better. It's like going into a rigged casino and expecting you're going to win. Kind of foolish, right? Yeah, it's no different. It's not any different. Not any different. The only difference is you're forced to gamble in the government's casino. By gunpoint. That's the only difference. It stops when we stop it. It stops when we put together more people interested about saving this country than what we can a football game or a baseball game. When we can put that amount of people with that amount of motivation towards putting an end to this nonsense, it will stop. I'm a huge advocate, as you know, for fathers' rights. And I'm the first one to say that if the men will ever pull their heads out of their asses and unite together and get together and literally shut down the family courts, period. Shut them down. Shut them down. Period. It stops. It stops. It's the same with the rest of this. If you got 100,000 people together, 200,000 people together, and amassed in Chicago, and said, get the hell out of here, you don't think 200,000 people could convince that woman that it might be a good day to resign? You don't think? I do. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing? I'm asking that to Americans as a whole with what's going on in the nation as a whole. I'm asking it to the men. Frustrating subject for me. Remember earlier tonight I was talking about how some of the stuff is just mind-blowing to me, how they're getting away with it. This whole thing with fathers and their children, how they're stripping the children out of the fathers' lives and then committing an economic terrorism on the fathers. And the biggest wealth distribution scam ever. Yeah, I call it out for what it is. And we just let them do it. Just let them do it. And it's okay. Not okay. Gotta stop being beta males. We gotta stand up. We gotta put a stop to it. You don't have to wait until time for voting season. You don't have to ask permission from anybody. Just do it. We need to do it. Anyway, there's a number 2 up there. I guess a couple more headlines. Countdown to Great Deplatforming, Part 2. PayPal partners with ADL against extremism and hate. Brazilian lawmaker sparks backlash after calling to revise child labor laws, citing 13-year-old skateboarders Olympic sober. Alrighty. crazy. Crazy. Child labor laws. Will humans stop at anything to cheat, to win? Sad. Anyway, I am out of here. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. I hope you all have a good evening. As always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit. And shalom.